writing, and I haven't been waiting for a response. I've actually been waiting for validation, you know? I've been waiting for somebody to say, you know, you've got great writing capability, what you've got to offer is brilliant, you matter, your story matters, your journey matters, these other women's stories who were within this book, their stories matter.
So what I started to do, I started to just like buy and sell domain names when the internet was like literally you had to plug it into your wall. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's so easy because you're chasing this dream and this vision that you have, and to feel as though you need to be working all hours of the day. And yes, there are some days where you need to push yourself that little bit harder, but you really need, if you haven't got your health and your well-being, you haven't got any business.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of She's the Boss, Female Entrepreneur Stories, where I am joined by phenomenal women from the world of business and entrepreneurship. If you haven't already done so, as usual, please make sure that you click that subscribe or follow button to make sure that you get an alert when I launch a new video, because you don't really want to miss out. So please click that button. Today, I am joined by Luckock, who is the founder of Share Impact Ltd. Kat, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Daniela. It's great to be here.
So, Share Impact, tell us a little bit more about it. What does the business do?
So, Share Impact is all about helping social entrepreneurs, so entrepreneurs who have an environmental or social purpose and mission to their business, and helping them actually attract more customers and income to their business so that they can actually deliver more of that essential social or environmental impact that they're there to create. One of the reasons I set up Share Impact was because many social entrepreneurs don't necessarily come from an entrepreneurial background. They come from either a third sector or charity background, and so often have challenges with understanding how to generate money through sales or trading income, or don't necessarily have the mindset around making profit and making money and generating sales. And so I was really passionate about supporting more social entrepreneurs to actually have this mindset and think about this, particularly in terms of how to sell, but around measuring and communicating their unique social impact.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
I love that. I am really quite passionate about social enterprise myself. My first business actually was a social enterprise, so I really love being able to have conversations with social entrepreneurs such as yourself. Mm-hmm. Where did your inspiration come from? What got you interested and involved in social enterprise?
Yeah, so my background professionally, I've always worked in the third sector and within education. I first started my sort of early part of my career was all around interfaith dialogue and intercultural education, and bringing people from different communities across the UK together, so particularly from different faith and cultural backgrounds together to learn about each other, and to learn and understand how to have positive conversations, but also have difficult, controversial conversations, sometimes in a sort of controlled, supported, facilitated way, and how they could support more, particularly interfaith and intercultural events and activities. So my background was through that, and obviously through that learned a lot about communications and community building, etc. It wasn't until 2013 when actually I was going through quite a big life transition. Actually, I've been living in London for 7 years, and I decided that I really I had this huge pull to move back here to North Wales, which is where I grew up and I'm from. So against everybody's advice and everybody's suggestions, because everybody's like, why are you leaving London? You've got so much opportunity there. You've got a good career. What are you doing? And it's like, you know, if anybody's had that gut-wrenching feeling that you can't really explain, you just know it's something you have to follow and pursue because you can't switch it off. I had that sense. And so I was creating changes, working towards finishing my role in London, finishing off my master's, and planning to move back. So sort of looking for opportunities in North Wales, which are limited in terms of the area that I was specialist in, but even broader than that in terms of thinking wider about what I wanted to do and my next steps in my career around working in the third sector, charity sector. They were still quite limited moving back to North Wales, but I was open to opportunities. And one of those really bizarre situations where one of my best friends phoned me up and said, I'm going for this meeting with this organisation that her mentor had put her in contact with. Do you want to come along? It's kind of just some interesting things that we've been talking about for the last 6 months, and I just think it'd be helpful and interesting for you to come along to this meeting. And really there wasn't much more than that. So we kind of both went to this meeting, which was essentially an organisation that was running. It had actually been set up as a sort of charitable organisation. It wasn't a social enterprise, running an education programme in secondary schools around sustainability, enterprise, and science, technology, engineering, and maths. And they were essentially, we didn't know really until we went to this meeting, that they were essentially planning to close the organisation down, close the programme down that they've been running for 5 years because there was lack of funding. And it just so happens that in the conversation that we were having, the chief exec at the time was really inspired by our sort of approach and like our backgrounds and what we were interested in doing, and kind of where me and my friend Jen were kind of coming to at that point. And she basically, which I appreciate never ever happens and is one of those really random things that happens, she basically said, look, if you think you can do something with this program, why don't you just take it and run with it and do what you think you can do with it? So we, you don't get opportunities like that, and you don't get business opportunities like that ever. So it took us a few weeks to kind of talk through it and decide whether that was right. Obviously for me, I was at a right position. I had another sort of part-time job while I was finishing my master's, but I didn't have any huge commitments, and I was going through this big transition and looking for the opportunity like this. And my friend Jen was in a similar situation. So the other important thing is that my friend Jen, because I hadn't really heard of social entrepreneurship at all at this point, but my friend Jen had just finished her master's in business and community. And so social entrepreneurship was at the forefront of her mind, and she was interested about whether we could create a trading income through a new business model for this, to be able to run this program in schools. My interest and passion to it was obviously because of my background in education. I really wanted to do more work in schools, work with younger students, because I'd predominantly been working with college and university students up until that point. And so we really, after a few weeks, decided, no, we have to jump at this opportunity. I was confident that in the first period, we'd be able to certainly apply for grant funding to help Kickstarters. We had a couple of business partners who were willing to invest and continue to invest for the first year. The former CEO was willing to run the program again for a year, whilst we could shadow her and actually learn the full program, because it's a full year-long program. So everything sort of slowly fell into place. And it was really through that experience that me and Jen learned everything we know now about social entrepreneurship, everything we loved and everything we hated and everything we wanted to change about the world. So I was operational in sort of the organisation is called Solutions for the Planet. It runs like I said, a STEM and enterprise sustainability programme, essentially educating 11 to 14-year-olds about how to use their science, technology, engineering and maths skills to tackle the sustainability crisis. Mm-hmm. And it's a year-long program. It's very much like Dragon's Den. So they're mentored throughout the year by our business partners, who are generally from the energy, utility, manufacturing and construction sectors across the UK. Anyway, so I've been in that business I was in that business operationally for 3 or 4 years. And it was through that I developed this huge passion for social entrepreneurship. We were engaged in lots of different social entrepreneurs, leaders programs and funding programs. We got to interact with a lot of other social entrepreneurs, and really my passion for this, what I saw as a new model of the way to do business, but with purpose and changing the way that we live and work, really came alive. And I think for me, having worked for most of my career up to that point for about 10 years in the charity and third sector, I could see that funding and this reliance on funding was drying up, and that was becoming very difficult for a lot of charities. And that social entrepreneurship for me had this alternative sort of solution, that you can still do good, but by having a business model that actually means that you're not always looking for funding. You're not only doing short-term projects, that you can actually invest and, make a difference long-term. That's what really excited me about it.
So then how did you get from there to here?
So sharing facts. So over those So for personal sort of reasons, in Solutions for the Planet was my dream job, and was my like literally it was like a dream come true every day. Me and Jen couldn't really believe what was happening. Yes, it was hard. Yes, it was difficult. It was a huge learning curve, but it was like in our, well, I'm trying to think how old I was. Yeah, my late 20s. I had kind of reached this pinnacle of my career, and I was like, I'm running an organisation that I love. That I can do what I want with it. You know, we know we're delivering impact. And yet I went to this conference and one of the women at the conference spoke, and I had this moment of, I need to be doing something else. I need to be doing something more. And also that was aligned to the fact that I was going through this another shift in personally, that I'd moved back to North Wales, but I lived on the road 4 nights a week. I wasn't spending any time in North Wales with my new partner, with my family. I wasn't putting down roots in North Wales, which was, I knew was actually, you know, I'd had this huge shift back to North Wales, but actually wasn't really spending any time there because I was so focused in this new organisation, which I loved, and just went on this whirlwind for 3 years. But actually, deep down, this sense of, I need to go back to this feeling of why I've come back to North Wales, why I'm here, what I'm here to do. And so it took a while, and I did take, I sort of, after some difficult conversations with Jen, I sort of stepped out operationally. I took some time out for a year doing something completely different, just had a job, a normal job where somebody else paid me and worried about all that side of things, and gave myself time to think about what it was I wanted to do. And that really developed into what Share Impact is. I really dug into the fact that for us, we grew the social enterprise relatively quickly compared to the people that were at the same stages as at the start. We generated trading income through selling to corporates. Yes, we had grant funding, but we did something uniquely different to the people that were kind of going through that process with us, our peers, essentially. And I was really interested in terms of, what is it that other social entrepreneurs are struggling with? What is it that they're not doing that we were doing intuitively? How is it that we can help more social entrepreneurs? I became so passionate about the social enterprise space. I was like, how can we make social entrepreneurs the normal way that people do business? And in terms of that, for me, it was about helping social entrepreneurs recognize they have to make a profit, they have to have a trading income, they have to have a sustainable income. And then it was like, well, okay, that feels quite scary, but how am I going to contribute to that? And that's where Share Impact came about. It's about really helping. And it's developed since then, really, because now I focus much more on female social entrepreneurs. I focus much more on particular types of social entrepreneurs in terms of where my interests are, around the types of business and the types of products or services they're selling. But yeah, essentially it's about making sure that social entrepreneurship becomes the way that we do business as the norm.
What a story. Firstly, that was so brave of you. So you were in this kind of dream job, but recognize actually this might not be it. And I think it takes a lot of bravery to then step away and say, actually, I need to pursue something different. And there's a lot of people that wouldn't have and would just stay in that position. But in taking those steps, then you've been able to create something that you, I assume, you enjoy equally.
Exactly. Yeah,
and find your way. So I think that's amazing. The second thing, your friend. So I started my first business with friends. It didn't necessarily work out very well, and the friendships did not continue. You obviously, you took a year out before you even went and started your new business. How did that impact, if it did, the friendship that you had, based on the fact that you would initially gone in it together?
Me and Jen, I had this really vivid memory of before we jumped all in Solutions for the Planet. We had this conversation because me and Jen have been friends. We're childhood friends, from our parents are friends. And I said to Jen, the only thing that I care about is that we don't compromise our friendship, because actually that's the most important thing. We are family, lifelong friends. Like, there isn't an option for us to cause a rift between us, and that is a risk, because I don't know how, because it kind of felt like a silly thing to say, because it was like, well, we'll never fall out, but I know that those things happen in business. And we were clear, and through the 3.5 years we worked together, that was really always at the front of our mind. And I think in one sense, yes, we've been lifelong friends, and we had that relationship to be really raw and real with each other at points. and trust that our friendship would survive. But also we would always take responsibility for going deep and talking about the things that mattered. And when we felt hurt, when we'd said something that we shouldn't have said, you know, when we'd been angry, whatever it was, like that we never let those things lie, that we talked about them, we tackled them, and we moved forward. And our friendship deepened, you know, like I remember when I met my husband during this time, I was like, there is a third person in this relationship. Like, that's my business partner and best friend, because I spent more time with her. She was the person that I knew more about than anybody else at that time. You know, we were in each other's lives. And I think our friendship just got better and stronger. And still now, yes, it was the most difficult thing, deciding and then having that conversation with Jen, like that I wanted to step away, but I'm still involved. I'm still a board member. I'm not operational. But, you know, because of our friendship, she was so willing and giving at that time, which, you know, she knew it was difficult for me, and I know she was scared about me leaving. But, you know, I also knew that she would make it a huge success without me. And she has done. You know, it's continued to be successful without me being there with her. So I think, yes, it was always a fear, but it was because of that fear, and we decided it was not possible for us to not continue our friendship, that we always put that at the forefront of our business.
I think that's a beautiful thing, and I'm really happy that you were able to do that. And I think one of the lessons that I learned from going into business with friends is to make sure that we set the tone at the beginning, and that's kind of what you said, and we didn't set the tone, and that's what became a problem. So kind of lines got blurred, friend type of conversations were happening when they should have been business type of conversations, and there weren't really any boundaries. So yeah, hearing you saying that as well kind of reinforces in my head that, yeah, really for these things to work, the tone has to be set from the beginning. And also, yeah, as you said, making it clear that falling out is not an option, and for us it clearly was an option. And we didn't ever really discuss it until it was too late, and now we're not friends anymore. So
but I also want to, like, I think we have been lucky as well. Like, I think you're right, I think you have to set the intention, but I think there's something, me and Jen are always quite surprised, and we, you know, it wasn't easy, there have been difficult times. I think we've just been really lucky as well, and we're lucky that we've had that. I suppose in some sense there's like a family structure around it as well, and we have been, and I don't mean this in that other people haven't had this, because I, you know, but that we've been brought up in a way to have those quite deep, difficult conversations at times that are hurtful, that hurt the other person, but you have to be able to share. And I think certainly my background in sort of interfaith dialogue stuff as well, I've always trusted that it's better to be open, be vulnerable, to share, to go deep with those people that you love the most, even when it's not always the outcome that you want or expect. You know, and sometimes that does mean separating, you know, moving apart as well. And I think sometimes that's the right decision as well. You know, sometimes you realize you're not as good friends as you think you are, or, you know, you're not aligned, or you don't have those shared values and stuff. And I think that's okay sometimes too. Yeah,
I've definitely been there. And this is obviously not necessarily 100% business focused, but I think it's really important because as women, I think sometimes we can ignore some of those difficult conversations, or put a lot into the idea of having these friends for life, but not necessarily always looking at, are our values aligned?
Yeah.
Is it about sentimentality, or is it about genuinely we are friends and we have a friendship that can continue, and we can endure a lot of pain going through those processes if they're not handled correctly? So I really value what you said around that. So going back to business, and specifically talking about social enterprise, you've obviously mentioned this idea of lots of the companies around you focusing on funding and not necessarily looking at building a commercial arm. And this is one of the, I don't want to say bugbears, but one of the issues that I always had with the social enterprise sector, that it was very funding heavy. And I remember many years ago writing a blog around the funding trap, and the idea that it seems like it's free money, but actually once you get it and you've got all this paperwork to do, it can be quite restrictive, and actually funding should be used to enhance the business, not to carry the business. When working with the social entrepreneurs that you work with, how difficult of a pill is it for them to swallow that? And do you have many people that are really kind of just set on, I need funding, I'm just going to get funding, and that's going to carry me through?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I totally share that bugbear with you, which is obviously why I do what I do. Yes, there are people that, so there's different, and there are different groups of people. There are people that are coming to social entrepreneurship because they have a great idea for a charity, but they see social entrepreneurship and think that's the way that charities are going, and that's what they should be doing. And actually, when I have a conversation with them, it's actually, no, you want to run a charity, and that's okay, and it's good, and it's a valid charity, and you can go and get sponsorship, funding, donations, and build a membership community. Like, it's a charity and it's okay, and that is something different and unique. I speak to a lot of people that come to me with their idea of a charity, and kind of think that because social entrepreneurship's kind of got this buzz about it at the moment, that that's the way to go. And actually, it's no easier to get funding for social entrepreneurs or as a social enterprise as it is for a charity. So that's the first thing. There's then another group of people, I think, that have a genuine social enterprise, something that can genuinely be a social enterprise, and feel that in the distant future, yes, they'll have a business plan and create trading income, but really don't have an idea of what and when they're going to start doing that, or what they'd actually trade in. They are just in sort of startup mode and quite small, narrow-minded mode of, we're just going to get started up and see what happens, and we don't really have a plan, but we know grant funding is the way to do that. And for me, that gets quite frustrated, not for those individuals, just that the sector enables that and allows that to happen. Because actually, for me, like you said, as a social entrepreneur, as having a social enterprise, you need to have a business plan and a commercial approach to how, even if you apply for grant funding to get started or to pilot something, that you've gotten a plan out of that.
Yeah.
And how you're going to start generating income. I would say even from day one, alongside that funding. And really good funders encourage that and don't fund you unless you've got a business plan and kind of ways to start generating income. So I really encourage more funders like that.
Well,
sorry, go on.
I was going off on it. Okay, I was going to say, one of the things that I always found frustrating with funders is that they didn't ever stipulate, or I don't know if it's changed now, that when somebody is funded, they have to work with a business development manager. And I think that would make the world of difference to the sector overall.
Yeah.
I remember going to one of the funders a couple of years ago, and I won't name any specific names, and pitching my services to say that when you're giving, and it doesn't have to be me, but I think this is what should be done, and it would be great if you could use me. When you're funding businesses, let me or somebody else go in and help them with a business plan, help them with a legacy plan. Because as you said, sometimes the funding helps to start a pilot and to test a pilot, but then what happens when the funding's finished? How do you carry on and build a legacy of the program or of the products or services?
Yeah.
I was told, actually, we're not going to do that. It's not something we're interested in. Our focus is on just funding projects and getting good outcomes.
Yeah. It's crazy. And I think there is a lot to be said that there are funders out there that are also limited in their thinking about how they're actually creating change, because they're only thinking about short-term projects, piloting things, getting people started up, and not the kind of, but luckily there are lots of funders now as well that do have that approach and thinking like that, and thinking more about how they're creating viable, sustainable businesses that are going to have commercial clout, really.
Yeah.
And then the other side, I think, is that there are definitely more and more people that I'm coming in contact with that get this idea of social enterprise, are really committed to having a trading income, but still need that support, still might be new to business and entrepreneurship, still don't know where to even start thinking about how they have a business plan, or what they're how they're going to create trading income, and how they're going to sell and market that stuff. And in that group, I would say there is a split between those people that are really, there is a focus on being not for profit, but really, in my perspective, for most people, that's a misunderstanding for profit is about. Because to me, traditionally, we've only had for profit and not for profit, and charities fall into that not for profit arm. And for profit means about generally profit for shareholders in the business, whereas social entrepreneurship is not about individual profit and wealth. To me, it's about creating wealth and creating profit, but for that social purpose or environmental purpose or the community that who are your beneficiaries. And so I think it's really about educating people that when I say for-profit social enterprise, which I'm super passionate about, it's because I have this deeper understanding of what social entrepreneurship is about, and that it's not about private profit and private gain. It's about challenging our economic structure and the way that we generate and accumulate wealth as individuals. It transforms that, and it challenges that fundamentally. This is about getting wealth back into the communities and to the people that need it most, so we can rebalance the economic system. Which, when I say that out loud, it's terrifying. It's like, why are you saying that? Stop. My voice is like, it's like, don't say that. You don't know anything about economics. What are you saying? But I know the basics, and I know enough, and I know the power of social entrepreneurship to create that change. And I think for me, that's one of my key messages, is that we need to be okay with making profit in our business and earning enough income for ourselves and our employees to create the change that we need to create in the world. And that's it.
I love that. And I think that's really powerful, actually. And don't negate the fact that you know about economics. You have enough of an understanding to recognize that what you're doing and what you're speaking into existence for the social entrepreneurs that you work with is going to have an impact. And I 110% agree. I always used to use the term for more than profit. So the profit is there, but it's not just about profit. It's for more than profit. And I find one of the, and I would value your opinion on this, one of the things that I find, so I don't necessarily work specifically with social entrepreneurs. I work with women in business generally and some men. But I find that women, whether they be social entrepreneurs or just typical entrepreneurs, seem to focus more on helping people than helping themselves. And particularly when you go down the social entrepreneurship route, it's more a focus on the impact and not necessarily understanding, or maybe even understanding, but not focusing or spending enough time on generating enough income so that they are looked after themselves. So it's not even for more than profit, it's for people before me. And that's always something that I find with women generally, and more so female entrepreneurs. Is that something you've experienced?
Absolutely, this week, because I think, I don't know if it's an innate part of being a woman or just being a female entrepreneur, but absolutely that give to the point of complete exhaustion and burnout before even thinking about, and campaigning for, fair and decent wages, for fair trade, for economic independence, for the rights of women, for the empowerment of women, but never actually putting themselves first and making sure that they've got an income to pay their bills, to cover their mortgage, to feed their children first. And it's always one of the things I have a first conversation with clients about, in terms of looking at their budget, looking at where their income's coming in. And like most people I speak to don't have any kind of budget or business plan, but if they've got some understanding of what they're trying to achieve, they haven't included their own personal income in there. And if they have, they're always undervaluing and calculating what their income needs to be. Because usually if they've come from other employment into become an entrepreneur, which is often the case, they usually set their income goal within their business as to what they earned in as an employee before, which obviously there's huge differences, because the costs of being an entrepreneur are much more significant, and with all those taxes and pensions and everything, and general just savings and stuff. And so it's one of my things that I work with clients quite a lot on, and also just talk about in a lot of my free resources and community, is that it's really essential that you're able to put your income, your personal income from your business first and foremost, and that you see that as part of a priority of generating income, that it's not something that comes secondary to paying everything else in the business, that it's an important part. But also I think the other part of that is not just about the income, it's about your health and well-being, and protecting yourself from burnout. Because I see lots of female entrepreneurs, they can't see past themselves as a solopreneur. They can't see themselves as the CEO of a business or being able to step out of the business and the business still functioning as a business. And I think for me, that's becoming increasingly something that I'm focusing on with clients and my community, is you have to be able to make this shift to get out of that startup phase of it isn't just about you. You have to be able to release control, employ people and bring people in and create a team, even if that's a remote team or volunteers or whatever. You need to be able to create a business. And I think it's moving from that solo entrepreneur sort of sole trader to are you running a business? Then the business needs to function without you in it.
Yeah. And that's really one of the kind of key focuses on the interventions that I have with women and men in business, and starting that process when you start the business, not at the point when you're overwhelmed.
Yes.
Start mapping out your systems and processes as you go along, as you're doing it, map it out, so that when you get to that point that you need to take on help, it's easier to implement them or integrate them into your business. And it's not going to take loads of time for you to train them because you've got everything already mapped out. I think sometimes we can, as women, we can wear this kind of badge of honor that we're superwomen, we can do everything. And actually, as you said, that can often lead to burnout. When you then put that in a business context, it's this kind of pride that without me, the business can't function. That's not somewhere that you want to be, actually, because that means your business is very vulnerable. And if you then add any children into the mix, you've got maternity leave, you've got dealing with actually raising a child. If the business is solely reliant on you, and another human being is solely reliant on you, there's always going to be a conflict there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I 110% agree with you.
Yeah. No. Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think I have gone through that. So I've had my first daughter last year. She's just about to be a year old at the end of March, and it's that realization. It's like, oh my goodness, this. I need a team. I don't want to work more than 3 days a week now. And actually, I'm more productive and profitable now than I ever have been in my business, working less time and putting boundaries around my time. But it's been a real learning curve, which I'm sure it is for most women when you have your first child. Like, I want to run my business differently. I thought I would run it like this way, and this is, having a family was one of the reasons I became an entrepreneur and wanted to become an entrepreneur. But the reality of being a mother and now, the whole family dynamics changing, it's like I have to change my business. So it is a business and not just me, making some money, essentially, like, it's like, what does the business look like? What does the business stand for? What is the branding around that? Who do I need to bring into the business to make this function? What are all the things that I could do? Like, we're all capable women. I could do everything, but I don't want to do everything, and I don't want to be working 24/7, and it's making those difficult choices and learning to, like you said, like, give away a little bit and kind of trust that other people have the best interest of your business in there. They can do things as well. And actually, what I really love is being able to employ other women and, give other entrepreneurs income by bringing them into my team. So I don't actually have any employees, but I have quite a few people that I work with at the moment who are helping me run my business.
I love that. So going back to the beginning of you starting your business, how did you acquire your first client? And what was it something that you kind of, I've started, I'm going to go into business, I'm going to get clients and I can do this? Or was there any apprehension around that process of acquiring your first client?
I'm trying to think who my first client was now. It was 3 years ago nearly. There was definitely apprehension though. I think I had, going into Share Impact, it was different again to being in Solutions for the Planet, where there was 2 of us, and we had a lot of mentors and support around how we'd go and pitch to corporates, and we'd developed our process of how we would pitch to corporates as well, specific to Solutions for the Planet. Being an entrepreneur on my own, being a new brand, a new face, starting to call myself an impact strategist and business coach, all felt really daunting. And it's kind of that imposter syndrome comes in and goes, everybody's going to call you out. You are not any of these things. You don't know anything you're talking about. Why is anybody going to give you any money to do anything? And so it was really digging deep. Like I've got to, and you're kind of like, you're on these highs and these lows constantly trying to kind of build yourself up, and then you've pushed yourself down and stuff. So yeah, I remember, and I think really until, if I'm completely honest, until this year coming back off maternity leave, it's not until now, in the last 4 or 5 months, that I've actually really felt this kind of, I really know my stuff and I'm really confident in where I am and I'm happy with my prices. They've pushed me enough at my prices in terms of where I want to go, and now I'm really confident and I'm not trying to speak to everybody and I'm not trying to desperately get clients and contacts. I know that I'm just here sharing my message and that the clients will come as and when they're ready and they hear my message. So, but yeah, in the very early days, I think I was willing to do, which I know many people are, willing to do all sorts of types of different things that weren't really where I wanted to take the business.
Mm-hmm.
But I would do things because I was desperate for income, and I was like, yeah, I can do that for you. I'll do this for you. Yes, I can do that. And like completely like, overwhelming myself, and also offering coaching at a ridiculously cheap price with people.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I learned so much through those processes, and I think there is a time for all of us in business. I would just recommend that you kind of keep it as short as possible so you're not undervaluing your services for too long.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because sometimes I'll be working with a client and telling them something, and I don't know if this ever happens to you, and I'm just like, I've just slapped myself in the face because actually what I'm saying to them, I needed to tell myself. The pricing thing as well. So for a long time, well, not a long time, but for a period, I was drastically underpricing myself. And it's funny because somebody that I was working with last year, I was reviewing an invoice that I'd sent to them and comparing how much that person paid versus how the person who's going to be paying for the same program is paying this year. And it's such a huge difference that it was laughable. Like, what made me even think that was a reasonable price to charge in the first place?
Yeah.
But what is funny is that I'm out here speaking to other women in business and saying, don't underprice yourself, value yourself properly, the imposter syndrome thing, tell yourself that you're amazing. But then there's certain areas that sometimes it even still slips in where I have some of the same similar issues.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that as well, particularly in regards to the pricing, because I think that's one of the biggies, really.
And I don't think that ever goes away. That's what I'm learning. Like, I think as each of us sort of develop and up level in our own business, we learn new things. Our capabilities expand, our interests expand. That is a constant thing that we, as you grow and develop in your business and in your skill set, you should be increasing your prices potentially, or increasing, recognizing the increased value that you're giving to your customers. And I think in each time you have those up levels, you always have those kind of like fears and doubts and procrastination that comes in, because it is a new level that you've got to push through, and it's kind of a new mindset that you've got to create and stuff. So I think it's unfortunately a continuous thing that we just have to learn to go, okay, I'm hitting this wall again, but I know I'll get through it. And at those points, that's when I know I just need somebody there with me, pushing me through, because on those days where I'm like, no, I need to go back to the safe space, they can push me through that door again.
Yeah, I think having accountability partners, having a coach, having supportive friends and family can really help. And I think sometimes friends and family can be a huge help, but can also sometimes be a hindrance if they're worried for you. Has the circle around you been very supportive in pushing you forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got my husband and I've got family very close as well, and they are incredibly supportive. But I think they often worry as well, because I think they don't get it in the way that I get it. They don't have that passion, and like they have the drive in a different sense, but they don't have the drive I have for my particular business. So they're super supportive and they want to see me succeed, and they get super excited when I have successes. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without my husband's support over the last few years. He's been incredible. But there are times when they have to check in with you as well, and I think that is still supportive. But they're like, is this really working? How can do you really want to carry on and stuff? And I think it's in those moments actually that's helpful as well, because I know, yes, I can't really think of, I don't know what else I would do. There is literally no other thing I want to be doing these days apart from developing myself and my business. So it means a lot to me that I have that support. But I think in my head, it's my family and my friends that are my biggest critics, not in reality, but in my head, I'm always going, oh, should I be doing this? Can I share that? Is this too vulnerable? Is this something that I want friends and family to see or hear and stuff, you know, because it's interesting though that that's not their reality, or, you know, it's my perception of what I think they're going to say.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. And that's why I said it can be a help and it can be a hindrance, because, so you really value when they give you the feedback and support you. But sometimes even them asking those critical questions, as you said, can be a motivator. Like, actually, yes, I can, and I'm going to, just because you asked me. But then at the same time, you also then worried about, gosh, what are they going to think of this? I remember my mom, for quite some time, used to always say, is it time to get a job yet? Time to get a job. It used to drive me insane. I'm not getting a job. This is what I'm doing. Leave me alone. So it was a kind of a good thing and a bad thing. It was good because it really motivated me, but then it also used to really wind me up. So it's an interesting combination. So if somebody's at home watching and they're interested in starting their own business, or potentially in the early stages of running their own business, what advice, 3 pieces of advice, would you share with them on what to do?
I've written some things down because I have an awful memory at the moment. So my 3 things are, do things that really scare you. So think about the things that you feel you're most fearful about and lean into that, because I've found in business that when I kind of lean into the fears, I've had the quickest development and growth, either in myself or in the business. And I think that's the case for many entrepreneurs. Like, often our fears are telling us the opportunities that we have, and they're showing us where the doors can open and where we can go for our next challenge, our next opportunity. Feel into the fears. Second thing is to show up, be vulnerable, and share your story. So one of the things that I talk a lot about in Share Impact with my community is sharing more of their story, their why they got involved, but also the story of their business, and kind of letting people in behind the scenes. Because I think sales happen now between people, and people need to trust you, not just as a brand, but as an individual, especially if you're still a solopreneur or a very small business. And so I think the more you can show up, share your story, talk from a truthful place, and just kind of share the story and the journey that you're going on as an entrepreneur, people really buy into that. And I've certainly seen that. I've had clients who started with me at the very first part of my business who, you know, have taken 2 years to actually pay me in terms of work with me as a client, but they've been on the journey with me. They know everything about my journey and my story to get here and stuff. And I think that happens progressively throughout your business. And the final thing is a piece of advice, but also a request, that for every entrepreneur, you take the climate crisis seriously, and you look seriously at what you're doing as a business owner to help contribute to tackle the climate crisis, or to tackle the inequality that exists globally. Because these are the 2 biggest things, and the reality is that we don't have long left, and we have to take responsibility as business owners to see how we can contribute to those solutions. And there's lots we can be doing, even in the smallest sense. Even if you're just working from home in your office, there is lots of things you can do that don't cost any money, that will actually save you money as well. So that would kind of be my advice and request, if that's okay.
Fabulous. And if people want to find out more about you and your business, what platforms can they find you on?
So my website is www.shareimpact.org, and you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram, either at Share Impact or at Cat Luckock. So check me out there.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story and being so open and honest. I really have found value in everything that you've shared. If you're watching at home, if you're listening, please make sure that you like, that you share amongst your networks. And if there's anything that Kat has said that's resonated with you, please write a comment. I put these videos out every week, and it's really good to get feedback to know that they're kind of resonating with you that are watching. If you are interested in being interviewed for She's the Boss Female Entrepreneur Stories, you can apply by emailing me at daniela@she'sthebossintl.com. And make sure that you follow me on social media. So I am on Instagram and Twitter at She's the Boss INTL. Also on Facebook, Daniela Genus, She's the Boss International. Thank you so much for participating, Kat, and wishing you every success with your business. And I will catch you all next week, Sunday at 8 o'clock for another She's the Boss Female Entrepreneur story. Thanks
Daniela. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.